Good morning, everyone. There's a lot of friends visiting this week. I don't know what the occasion is, but I'm delighted to see everyone. Some new faces too, and welcome to everyone online. I'm going to start by reading a prayer from Whispers from Eternity, which is Yogananda's book of poems and prayer demands. And this is one of his prayer demands for children, which I don't normally read these, but I just found this so perfect for this topic, and there's just a sweetness in it. So, by loving all my friends, may I find thy love. Mother Divine, make me love equally every friend in my life. By loving them, may I find thy love in all hearts everywhere. Teach me to return even greater love to those who love me, and to pray also, and even especially, for those who do not love me. I will secretly enjoy loving them, for they too, though they know it not, are my brothers and sisters in God. It's such a sweet topic this week, so please excuse any emotion. I wanted to start with a story that I read recently about a man in Florida. He was at a restaurant and he walked in and there was an older gentleman sitting by himself. And so he just said hello to him on his way in. And when he was walking out, he noticed that this man had all of these bills, all of this money all out on the table, $1 bills and $5 bills. And so the man stopped and asked him about it, what he was doing. And he said, I give these away. I give these to people, to strangers, to children, anyone I find. I like to give them to people at the restaurant. I've been doing it for many years. And the other gentleman noticed that he was pinning to each bill a little note that said, love everybody. And so he asked him, why are you putting that note on each one? And he said, it was the last thing that my mother said to me before she passed. Not I love you, but love everybody. And that's what Divine Mother is telling all of us. That's what this reading from the Bible, what Jesus is telling us, is love everybody. No exceptions. Because that's how God loves. No exceptions. And the more we can put ourselves in tune with that love, with that perfect love, the more we can feel God's presence in our lives. The title for the talk this morning is Perfection is Self-Transcendence, but I think it could just as easily be Love is Self-Transcendence. Jesus is asking us to love our enemies. And it's through loving others that we really learn what true perfection is. It's through loving others that we expand beyond our little self, beyond those that we love, that love us, beyond loving our family and our friends. We transcend the ego. We transcend that little sense of self and I and me and mine through loving. When we hear, I don't know about you, but when I hear this reading, be ye therefore perfect, as your Father in heaven is perfect, there's sometimes a sense of distance. Like perfection is out here, and I start tuning into okay, where am I, and how far do I have to go, and what do I need to do, and comparing and measuring, and how do I get to that perfection? I don't know if I'm the only one, but that's sometimes how we tune into perfection, that it's something out there that we have to do, or that we have to achieve, or that we have to become. But Jesus isn't saying, become perfect. He's saying, be perfect. Be in that divine perfection. That's who you are. You're already perfect on that soul level. Yes, outwardly, of course, we have our imperfections, we have our flaws, we make mistakes. That's one reality. But Jesus is calling us to be in that divine perfection, to be in that divine presence. That's who we really are. Our soul is already perfect. There's no distance. Only if we put it there, only if we create that in our minds. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's one of my favorite descriptions. It says, weapons cannot cut the soul, fire cannot burn it, water cannot drown it, wind cannot wither it away. The soul is never touched. It is immutable, all-pervading, calm, unshakable. Its existence is eternal. That's the perfection that we're seeking. That's who we really are. The Dalai Lama calls it our Buddha nature. And was reading about a Catholic priest recently who says we all have an unshakable goodness. And I love that phrase. Something about that just helps me tune into this reality, both in myself and in others, because that's what we're being asked to love, is that soul reality, that soul nature, that goodness that's in every one of us. And that's how God loves. When we think about, someone that you really love, not romantically, not that fleeting love, but someone that you really care about. When you think about them, aren't they perfect in a way in your eyes when you love them? Of course, they have their flaws, they might make mistakes, but there's something about loving that allows us to see that unshakable goodness, to see that perfection in another person. And that's how God loves every one of us. Yogananda said that God loves you just as much as he loves Jesus Christ or any of the masters. God loves you, every one of us. It says in the festival, in God, all are equal. All are equal. Even on earth, those who have sinned most greatly. There's no exceptions to God's love. And the more we can set aside our conditions and our exceptions, the more we can draw nearer to God. Because that's what Jesus is calling us to, not to love because it's nice or it's good or it's the right thing, because it's the only way that we're going to find God, is to love everybody, to love with that divine love. There's a story of St. Francis. I was thinking about St. Francis this week because he's such a perfect example of this unconditional love. His whole life, just loving everybody, birds and trees and people, everyone, no exceptions. Such a beautiful example of that. And when he was early in his, taking this new path, leaving behind his old life, he was starting to go out into the hills and go into the caves and meditate, just be in silence and stillness. And so one day he was riding out and he saw on the road coming towards him a man with leprosy. And in those days, leprosy was the most reviled, the most feared disease. And lepers couldn't live in the towns and cities. They were banned from any human contact. Imagine that. And Francis, too, had that fear when he saw this man coming towards him. And he went to turn and run away. And suddenly he found himself instead moving towards this man. And as he got nearer, he could see he was dragging himself along on crutches. He could see the sores. He could see the disfigurement of the disease. He was overwhelmed by the smell of decay, and he felt sick, and he wanted to turn away. And yet he found himself just continuing forward. And when he reached the man, he got down from his horse, and he gave the man all the money that he had. And the man reached out to receive it, and his hands were covered in sores and decay. And St. Francis wanted to turn away. But instead, he found himself bending down and kissing this man's hand. And when he looked up, he felt no fear, no disgust. He felt this overwhelming joy, this overwhelming peace come over him. And as he went to leave, he turned back, and the man had disappeared. And he realized it was Christ who had healed him of that sense of separation, of that fear, of that hatred. That man was his brother. And it's a lesson for all of us that when we fear, when we judge, when we criticize, even in our thoughts, we're turning away. We're creating distance and separation, not just from other people, but from God. But the opposite is also true. When we keep moving forward, when we embrace whatever comes to us, whatever's in front of us, whoever's in front of us, we embrace God. We feel God near. There are many examples from the life of Yogananda and from Swami Kriyananda, because even though they were great souls, maybe because they were great souls, there were people that hated them, that wanted to destroy them. There was one man in particular in Yogananda's life who was very jealous, persecuted Master, spread lies about him. And at one point at the end of Master's life, this man came to Mount Washington. And Master looked at him and he said, "Remember, I will always love you. Remember, I will always love you." I think it's hard maybe for some of us to imagine loving like that, and yet at the same time, there's this longing in our hearts to know that love, to know a love like that, that's unshakable, that's eternal. And what happens is we take things personally, don't we? And we react, and it creates a distance from that love that's available in every moment. Swami Kriyananda said, "Try to understand why others do what they do, even when they're doing wrong things or are trying to hurt you. Try to understand where they're coming from, and you'll be amazed at how much compassion that gives you. Try to understand." There's another story from the life of St. Francis when he visited the town of Gubbio. And at the time, Gubbio was being attacked by this one lone wolf. It was coming into the town and killing the children and animals and people, and 3 of their strongest guards had gone off into the woods to try and take care of this wolf and never came back. And St. Francis appears, and he says, "I'll go and talk to the wolf." And all the townspeople, "No, don't go." They were afraid for him. "Don't go, this wolf is evil, he's terrible." But St. Francis went, and as he entered the woods, the wolf saw him and started charging towards him with his teeth bared. And St. Francis just made the sign of the cross, and the wolf stopped. And he walked up to St. Francis and just laid at his feet. And St. Francis talked with the wolf and began to understand that the wolf was hungry. He didn't mean to harm anyone. He didn't want to hurt anyone. And so they came up with an arrangement that the wolf would stop attacking people in the town if the townspeople would feed him. And it's interesting, though, the 2 different approaches to the wolf. that of St. Francis and of the townspeople. Because why did the wolf stop when St. Francis approached? It was the power of his love, of his willingness to see goodness, that unshakable goodness, even in that wolf, and to try to understand, to make that effort to try to understand, to not just say, oh, he's bad, he's not good, let's be afraid of him, let's punish him, let's push him away. When we do that to anyone, in any way, we push God away. Be aware of that. There's a sweet story that Jyotish and Devi sometimes tell about their son when he was 3 or 4 years old. He must have been a little worried about something bad that he had done. And he went to Swami and he said, Swamiji, do you love bad people? And Swami's answer was so perfect, so sweet. Yes, I love bad people. I don't always love the bad things that they do. And that's what we have to try to remember. What it means to love everybody doesn't mean we have to love the things that they do, but to try to see beyond that. To try and remember that even if we can't see it, even if we can't feel it, there is that unshakable goodness. There is that soul reality in every being. There's a Catholic priest that I mentioned named Father Greg Boyle, who for the past 35 years has been working with former gang members in Los Angeles, helping them, providing resources. He's created a whole organization. And he says every person is a whole lot more than the worst thing that they've ever done. He says, I try to see that everyone is unshakably good and everyone belongs. And it's that Christ-like compassion that has allowed him to create this community, this organization that allows people to transform their lives. It's incredible the stories that he tells about former gang members from rival gangs. They come to this program and they provide jobs and they're working side by side. These people that used to shoot at each other and kill each other and try to hurt each other are working side by side. And not only that, supporting each other, becoming friends. That's what love can do. When someone is given a chance, when someone is reminded of their goodness, and we can do that for each other. Such a beautiful blessing. We can do that for each other. It is possible to love our enemies, but we can't do it alone. We need each other. We need community. We need to be reminded of that goodness. We need to remind each other of that goodness. And we need God, most of all, because it's not our love. We're not loving with our own love. It's God's love that's flowing through us. Today is Rajarsi Janakananda's birthday, and Rajarsi was one of Yogananda's foremost disciples. And one of my favorite stories is once Yogananda said to him, "Don't forget where your power comes from." And just like a little child, he said, "I won't, Master. It comes from you." Our love comes from God. Everything comes from God. So we're going to face difficult things and difficult people even in our lives. But we can call on God to help us love. So I'd like to end with one last story, which is about a woman named Corrie ten Boom, who is a Christian woman who lived in Holland during World War II. And she and her family helped Jewish people to escape from Holland by hiding them in their house. And at a certain point, they got caught, and she and her sister went to a concentration camp. And she's written a beautiful book called The Hiding Place, which if you haven't read it, I would recommend, because it's a beautiful testament to her faith, to what's possible when we put all of our faith in God, when we love God with all our hearts. And after she was released from the concentration camp, she started to travel around and to share with people about forgiveness and about reconciliation. And she found herself in Germany in 1947 in Munich, and she was giving a talk on God's forgiveness, a beautiful talk on God's forgiveness. And after the talk ended, people were starting to leave, and she saw this one man coming towards her, and she recognized he was one of the guards from the concentration camp. And she just froze. And so this man came up to her, and he said, "Oh, I loved your talk. It was so wonderful." And he puts out his hand to shake her hand. And she said, "I just froze inside. I couldn't even reach out to shake his hand." I think we can all imagine how difficult that must have been. And he says, again, "I just loved what you shared about God's forgiveness. You know, I've become a Christian and I know that God forgives me, but I'd like to hear it from your own lips. Do you forgive me?" And he puts out his hand. And she said she knew what she had to do. She knew she had to forgive, not because it was the right thing, but because it was the only way to really live the teachings, to really live in that presence of the divine and to keep God near. And so she sent up a silent prayer, "Jesus, help me," because she could feel nothing. She said her heart was like ice. She said, "Jesus, help me. I will put out my hand, but you have to supply the feeling." And so she put out her hand with all of her willpower. She put out her hand to shake this man's hand. And she said as soon as she did, she felt this current traveling down her arm and this warmth filling her whole body. She said she had never before or since experienced God's love so intensely. And she said, "I forgive you, brother, with my whole heart." With my whole heart. We can't forgive on our own like that. That's God's love flowing through us. That's God's forgiveness. So let's call on that divine presence, that divine love to flow through us, to love others, to love everyone and everything that comes to us this week, to make that effort. It's not easy. But let's be that 1 in 1,000 that makes that effort, that even tries, even to put out our hand, to just keep walking forward towards whatever is coming towards us, to open our hearts with that divine love, and to feel God ever nearer with every effort that we make.
When the sun's high in the sky, there's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. La 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 la. Even so, all of us together can create a better land. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. La 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 la. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand.
Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach my heart to impart everywhere your delight. Sing of moon rays on the rain, sing that love's not in vain. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song. Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach all men how to spin clouds of gloom into light. Without silence, what is song? Without night, where is dawn? Were it not for men's woes, who would smile at a rose? Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Let each tone silence grow, earth and heaven unite. Morning laughter, evening tears, snow and blossoms, all fade. Joy must sing